Good morning. Welcome to Flintco Talks. This is your host, Dano, 21 years at Flintco here in the Austin office. I'm delighted to be joined today by Melanie Gilbertson, our Director of Production Support. Good morning, Melanie. How are you?
Good morning, Dano. I'm great this morning. Excited to be here.
I'm glad to have you here today. So we're going to delve into kind of the Flintco lean journey today. And I want you to just start by kind of telling us a little bit about yourself and a little bit how you got onto the lean train and why this has become your passion and your daily grind, what you do every day. Tell us a little bit about it.
Okay. There's a lot there. I guess I started out, or it's important to start at the beginning to know how I got all the way to where I am today. And for me, my first lean project was actually in 2009 with different companies.
Oh, nice.
In operations, project engineer, and like many of our fellow people in the industry, I got told to do it. Somebody come back from a conference, have this great idea. Here's how we're going to make scheduling better. Like, okay, sounds cool. And so 2009, keep in mind we'd been in a recession for probably about a year. And the job that I was on was a pretty small job, and we had probably 5 or 6 bidders for every single package. So if that gives you an idea of like how much people needed work. And so we didn't get the highest quality trades on every single package in there. It was a pretty tough job. It was tight space. But what was really cool is taking part in that collaborative exercise of planning and then being able to go out and see, like, here's what this sticky note means. Here's how we're checking work. For me, very early in my career, like, it was a really great learning experience. And I really liked the metrics and the learning around it. Like, to me, it felt like we were driving towards improvement every single week. So extrapolate, later through my career, still stayed in operations, had a good experience with that, was asked to teach a couple classes, try and get people bought in, try to get people bought in on my projects. But we never really got anywhere because we didn't have a lot of corporate support. So it was just kind of like, all right, well, if I can get people to do it on my projects, cool. If I can't, okay. And then I got a call from a headhunter. And it was like the first time I picked up a call from a headhunter. I was really happy as a PM. And this guy asked me, like, what would your dream job be? And I said, well, something related to quality or lean. Tulsa, Oklahoma at the time, that was not the market. So, I kind of was like, I'll never hear from this guy again. And he called back 2 weeks later and said, would you be interested in talking to Flintco? And, Flintco's headquartered in Tulsa, been there for, I think, right at 100 years at that point in time. And I was like, well, who wouldn't be interested in talking to Flintco? So, okay. What's funny is it probably took about a year for me to, like, really believe that this was a legit thing, that Flintco was actually interested in this idea around construction support services, and that there was a role where you could spend, being full-time talking about lean or like trying to implement, trying to do something with it, versus just talking about it. And so that's what made it very attractive and so I made the leap out of operations into focusing on this. At the time, we were focused on 2 projects. So Flintco was going to pilot 2 projects, see how those went, one of which was supposed to end in 2019, so this would have been back in 2016. And what we saw is, as we were going through those 2 pilot projects, and I'm getting a firsthand view of this because we had consultants on both of those jobs, is there were people reaching out and saying, hey, we've heard about this, or it seems exciting. I would like to volunteer. Can you tell me more? And so made the option to internally support them. So I guess what's funny to me is thinking of like my career path at Flintco. I was a quality assurance manager at the time. So like 50% of what I was doing was supposed to be lean related. Everything else was quality.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I'm not spending a whole lot of time on anything quality focused. It's more like we're coaching lean and last planner system, getting people trained up on how we do this and stuff. And so that just kind of progressed through 2016. We started 2017 with about 20 projects. I think we were somewhere in that 15 to 20 range, January 1. And by the time we hit May, it was like 20 projects. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, Melanie can't support all this by herself, especially not like with my title still as quality assurance manager, and I feel really guilty because I'm not doing anything on quality. So what are we going to do? And that's where we really started looking at resources as part of, how are we going to standardize both the practices that we're putting in place in Lean, because now we have this, or I should say the practices we're going to put in place at Flintco with our Lean program. What seems to be working really well for us, what isn't working well for us, and how are we going to get the word out to where we get to 100% adoption across all projects. And that was a goal that Peter stated pretty early on in the process, because part of our success is like, if you want a cheerleader, like you need your CEO as a cheerleader.
Mm-hmm. Gotta have the backup, right?
Yeah, right. Like you know this. Like I think it was pretty clear to everybody who worked here. Like if we're not doing Lean, why not? Like what's going on?
There's got to be a reason why.
Yeah. So he was always challenging and pushing along the way. Like, hey, we need to be thinking about this. We need to be thinking 5 steps ahead rather than 2 steps ahead. So
one thing you said in your story was about getting buy-in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that you struggled with. I want you to talk for just a second about, after Peter was bought in, what was the process of getting the rest of Flintco bought in? And was it an easy process, right? I mean, this is 2017. It's been 6 years.
Yeah.
Has it gotten better?
Yeah, no, I think it really has. Looking back, man, it felt like we really focused on, with those first few projects, like just try a daily huddle.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's start with that.
Baby steps.
Let's see some gains out of that. So okay, you don't want to try the 4-hour meeting and all the training and filling out a spreadsheet, tracking your percent plan complete, your PPC every single day. Feels like a lot of work. Cool. Like let's start at the beginning with a daily conversation. And we got a lot of traction out of that. And for me, something personally satisfying was all of a sudden I heard from the superintendent on one of our pilot projects, Sean. He had gone to his next job at that point. It was a JV job, so like Flintco didn't even have the JV control of the schedule, and he was still implementing daily huddles.
Wow.
Because he had found them valuable. And like nobody told him to, there was no like company benefit to doing so. He found benefit to them in managing work. And that's when I was like, okay, now I've got some people. Like this is good. Like we're onto something here.
Yeah, totally. And the starting small piece is big for any kind of change, right? Change is tough to embrace, whether it's with yourself or with the company. And by starting small, that's definitely key. Mm-hmm. So when you think back from 2017 till today, 20 projects in 2017, that was maybe 15 to 20% of the work we were doing that year.
Yeah.
What are we today?
So if you look at quantity of projects, we have about 100 active projects in a given year. And quantity-wise, we're probably, I think, when I looked last week, it was like 62 of those. 62% of those are a Lean project. What I like looking at is the dollar value.
Mm-hmm.
So when you consider the total contract revenue that Flintco has in a given year, how much of that was affected by a Lean project? We're at 96%.
Wow. So,
are there a few jobs where like the support is tough, or there's different challenges where like, hey, not that it doesn't make sense, but like the entire system of Lean 2.0, making sure they have our 5 standard practices in place, making sure they're supported by a coach. Is that, the team's biggest worry? No. And that's fine. Mm-hmm. I think we get a lot of success and a lot of traction off of, hey, at the end of the day, like we need to do what's best for the project. Mm-hmm. But knowing that most of the revenue that we're bringing in a given year is planned through Lean 2.0, it's using the last planner system. We're training our trade partners. We're developing our own people, making sure that they have a Lean coach assigned to them, making sure that everybody on that team learns how to facilitate a phase plan, learns how to facilitate a weekly work plan meeting, is bought in on tracking, percent plan complete. That to me is a great measure of success. And so we're still going to push for like 100% on the quantity, but I feel really good about where we're at today.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge step from where we were 5 or 6 years ago.
For sure.
I know the last several projects I've been on, we've implemented the 5S+1, right? And we get to the point where picking the plus one becomes fun. Like,
Yeah.
what are we going to do, right?
Yeah.
I always like to pick the one that's like, hey, we're going to recognize people for their successes, right? We want to take time to say, hey, thank you for what you do, right?
Yeah.
You matter working on our job site. You matter working here. Thanks
Yeah.
for your hard work.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the governing board inside Flintco, the steering committee that we have that kind of
Okay.
leads this whole
Yeah.
operation for us.
So it's actually a really kind of a personal triumph on that one as well. It's not one that I would have predicted, back when I started with Flintco in 2016. But in my opinion, a definition of success for lean at Flintco was always to get it to be self-sustaining. Like, nothing about our lean program should ever rely on Melanie Gilbertson being here, or, we always have to have a lean manager, 15 lean managers to keep the drive alive. And so knowing that was kind of a true north about the program, we have always solicited a lot of input from project team. I mean, all of our input comes from project teams, but especially from lean coaches, our experienced coaches, folks who are mentoring other coaches, making sure that what we're, suggesting project teams put in place and the standards that we're establishing are genuinely producing the most effective results on that project and, achieving outcomes that we want to achieve. And so, we kind of came to the realization at the end of 2021, because we put the Lean 2.0 steering committee in place in 2022, that the people who should be setting the strategic direction for the program moving forward should be the people who are practicing it every single day. And that's not me anymore. Hasn't been me for a while, which is kind of sad personally, but at the same time, that's where we need to go. That's the next iteration of the program. So we started out with the steering committee just asking volunteers. Not surprisingly, it was a lot of folks who have been heavily involved as a mentor for new coaches coming in through Lean Coach Boot Camp. Some of them have presented at Congress before. Some of them are presenting at Congress this year, actually, and just been heavily engaged in the project. But we also we had a director on board who he hasn't been through boot camp at all, has been instrumental in developing the charter of that, and we've got a plan in place to keep everybody in rotation, make sure all area offices are represented. You don't have to be a lean coach or a lean mentor on it. Honestly, I kind of hope we see some skeptics coming in on it in the next few years. Okay, you're skeptical about this being effective or that being effective. Join in and having a say. So it's a really cool iteration of where we need to be to keep Lean 2.0 in place long term.
How often y'all meet?
So they developed the charter in 2022, and that's what we've stuck with 3 in-person meetings.
Nice.
With the thought being, you're making the commitment, so we're going to go in, we're going to make decisions, use that time effectively, have a lot of camaraderie about it. And one meeting takes place in early winter to try and set, some specific planning for the year, one in the middle to try and think about the people strategy for the following year. And then our final meeting of the year, I probably have to stop saying "our" before too long, because I think I'm going to be booted off next year at the end of my rotation. But the final meeting takes place to coincide with Congress, so that we kind of have this initial meeting, go in, what is the rest of the industry doing, what how are we benchmarking against that, what are we interested in, what do we need to talk about next year. And then we follow up with kind of a debrief call. Okay, here's the priority for the next year. Here's this informs our 2027 strategy overall at Flintco.
So I heard you talk a little bit about 2 different positions, like a lean mentor or a lean coach, right? Can you tell me a little bit about each of those and maybe what are the differences or expectations of each position?
So the lean coach role is probably the historical role, right? Mentor has developed out of coaches just continuing to be involved, gain experience, and being, they were mentoring new coaches coming in. So that's where that role kind of evolved. Currently, with the expectation set, lean coaches are selected from lean champions assigned on a project. That was not always the case. In fact, In 2017, with our first class of lean coaches, we didn't have any expectation of you have lean experience. We just wanted folks who were respected by their peers. They were selected by their area, or kind of confirmed by their area manager, but also wanted, through observation in each area office, hey, this is a person that people are going to listen to when they say we should make this change. Kept that into 2019, and that first class was probably like 12 folks. In 2019, we grew to 40 folks. So wow. That was fun.
Big jump, right?
Big jump in person. The boot camp that we put on was a much bigger deal. We learned a whole lot through those two evolutions, but still kind of maintain that, like, wanted people who were leaders in the company, whether they had been pinpointed as, hey, you're in a leadership program or not, but like somebody who was going to be respected by their peers. And we've kept that to this day.
Wow.
What's cool is in 17, 19, and 20, each class of lean coaches coming out of that, it was more focused on, here's how to put lean in place on your project. And so that lean coach was always expected to help coach another project, not their own. Sure, you champion on your own job, but really we want you to help out this other team, just putting practices in place. You don't have to know anything about the project. You're helping them learn how to facilitate. Maybe you're going in helping them like manage relationships with their trade, but like you don't need to be the expert. You're not writing RFIs and submittals on that job. Where we got to in 21 is all of a sudden we had our first group at boot camp of new lean coaches who were asking us, like, yeah, we got the basics of lean. We don't need to know that anymore. What we want to know is how can we train others? And so that's where we really saw this transition to people who were more of that coach role coming in firsthand and needed the benefit of a mentor to also like help answer that question. How do you train people to do this? Because I can, full-time lean manager, like I can tell you all the things you want to know about it, but I'm not there like talking to my peers. Like I'm still corporate. And some people still perceive like what I say is like, this is so, rather than challenging or pushing back. So that's really where, we kind of had this lean mentor idea festering in there. And that's where it really in 21, 22 was like, this is absolutely something that we need. In 2022, that was a first priority for the Lean 2.0 steering committee, was we want formal recognition of this. We want to define what those three roles are. We want, the folks who are being selected for boot camp, some of them, like in our earlier classes, they were leaders. They didn't have a desire to go coach others. And that's cool. Yeah. Like, it's not for everybody.
Totally.
And so we wanted to go back to, hey, we want folks who are interested in coaching others, not just wanting an advanced lean course. And so that's where also those formal expectations for each role were developed as well, and that's what governs the program to this day.
So how many mentors do we have inside the company now?
Right now we have 14 who met that expectation in 2023, and what's really cool is I think we started out with a group of 16, so I'm not going to do the math in my head, but like the retention statistic is really good. Previously, before rolling out the formal expectations, having that approved, having compensation be an element around the program as well, recognition of that coach and mentor role. Yeah, that was a big win for this year.
There you go.
Previously, we probably retained only about 50% of our coaches year over year in the program because people were like, eventually they would admit, I like lean, or I'm glad I know more about it. I don't want to do anything with it. Like I've got other stuff that I'm passionate about at Flintco, and that's cool. Like
totally
we need all those
right?
folks, but we want to retain the folks that we do have, and that's where that idea of compensation was born.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about that. I didn't even realize lean coaches or mentors got some compensation, and you said it's a win. And for those people, maybe that's why I didn't know about it. Maybe they're kind of keeping it under their hat and kind of like, hey, maybe if nobody knows, nobody else will join.
It could be. So it's been the culmination of probably about 12 months worth of work in this form. Kind of a little side journey there. In 2018, 2019 was when we first had that conversation. And we're still thinking like, oh, well, maybe a coach is a 24-month commitment versus a 12-month commitment. Little did we know, like there's mentors who've been involved like for all 7 years that I've been here at Flintco. But at the time that we proposed that first plan to Peter and a couple other folks in the room, Peter challenged us to think bigger. And then, things were kind of on halt a little bit with COVID, came back to it with the steering committee. And yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody expected it. It was like, no, we'll still do it if we need to, we believe in the program, we believe in the benefits it provides, we believe in the improvement it can offer people. But it's really nice to be rewarded for the hard work. And that's where the compensation came into play. And two, if it can help us retain people, in service of, hey, we want you to retire at Flintco. Like that's part of our 2027 strategy as a company, right? Like we want you to stay at Flintco. We want to retain that knowledge in-house, and we think you deserve to be rewarded for hard work. So the idea of compensation for those individual roles, and there is a pretty healthy difference between coach and mentor because the requirements are different. Like the mentors have a lot of people management aspect to it. They are holding those coaches accountable. They're developing content, they're directing content for the curriculum, but we want those folks to stay at Flintco. We know they're doing their day job in addition to all of the responsibilities, and that deserves to be rewarded.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's that discretionary effort. It's, hey, I'm going to take a little bit more, and I'm going to give a little bit more, and it sounds like the mentor is definitely a much more challenging position, much more available position than the coach who's maybe just on their job and helping supplement on another. I know that jobs I've been on that had a lean coach, it's a visit once a month or, at least a phone call once a month. Hey, what's going on? Can I help with the phase plan? So can you talk a little bit about what the compensation is? Is that something we can share?
So the compensation, at least this year, and in the true spirit of continuous improvement, plan, do, check, and adjust, could change. So this year, lean coaches for the last 12 months of service were awarded $3,000.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty respectivul, right? Like I would sign up for that.
That's a nice set of boots.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe two,
Depends where you shop.
Yeah, true. So $3,000 for the coaches and for, their obligations with coaching and other projects. There's also an expectation that they're engaged in the lean coach community as well through, teaching events, or we have a coach call every single month, either in their area office or company-wide. The mentors get $6,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So, trying to hey, you don't need to, this isn't all you're going to live on, but at the same time, you're putting in a lot of hard work. Hopefully this makes a difference to you, and we want you to continue with the program. They do have an option to re-enlist. I don't know if that's the best word for it, but that's the word that I think
Sign
of it.
back up, right?
Yeah, pretty much. You can consider this your signing bonus.
Yeah.
So every 12 months they have the option, if they don't have the right capacity, or, maybe had a kid, had two kids, they're dealing with some other stuff, you can drop out. That's fine. And that's why we set that 12-month plan. So the other cool thing about it is, with Flintco, we have our STIP program where that generally shows up in February. And everybody is eligible for that. For us, with the lean coaches and mentors, that shows up in November, so right before the holidays. So it is distinctly different from our STIP program, but still, hopefully a nice bonus before the end of the year.
Absolutely. That's great. So you talked a little bit about the coaches, right? They're previously picked from lean champions, and then they can go on to be coach and go on to be mentor. What can you kind of talk a little bit about the transition from each step and kind of up the ladder? Just now that the number's out there, you're going to have some people knocking down your door saying,
that's
Melanie.
That is one of the many benefits of it. Like I said, we want you to retire at Flintco. We will do what it takes. We want you to be here if you want to be here. So the lean champion role, so those folks are expected to go through a lean champion training where it's that more advanced, here's how to put last planner system in place, here's what those the different conversations around phase plans, weekly work plans, daily huddles, the tracking of percent plan complete, learning from that's key. Here's what all of that looks like. And all of that is 100% delivered to the champions by a lean coach under the guidance of a lean mentor.
Okay.
So that's kind of that first stipulation. You go through, lean champion training, so you have this and you can be a genuine champion for it on our project.
So how long might that process take to start from just, hey, I'm just a project engineer or an APM and I'm going to get my hand in the air and I want to be a champion? Is that like a 2-month, 6-month, 3-week type process?
You raise your hand. Most of the team is not going to fight you for it. They're going to be like, hey, that's really cool, and it makes sense that it's this person. So, like, you say you want to be a lean champion, you're a lean champion.
Okay, cool.
And we create the opportunity for you to go through training.
Great.
The other responsibility that they have, we do ask our teams to submit a self-assessment every single month, the infamous lean project survey that I know everybody holds near and dear to their heart.
That's one of the best.
Well, y'all will learn to love it at some point, especially as you realize like how it really does inform the development of our program. So the lean champions are expected to turn that in, or at least make sure it's turned in. We want that done as a team. So hopefully, hopefully the lean champion is rounding up the team and they're having that conversation. So boot camp. Nominees can, be nominated by their peers, by their director, by their area manager, by the Lean 2.0 steering committee. Basically anybody who's like, hey, I think this person would be a good fit. We do have an end of year survey that we send out to all of our active coaches. And I say end of year because our end of year is like August. And we find out, do you have any suggestions or names? But we also, if a person is a lean champion and has raised their hand, I'm interested in taking, this to the next level. That's how you get engaged in boot camp. We do try to keep that class size small. That's what we found works best for Flintco. So about 15 folks. 10 to 15, you don't get in this year, maybe it'll be next year. Stay engaged, keep us posted.
So what does boot camp involve when you say boot camp?
Yeah.
Is that here, or is it you go someplace and it's a week long, or it's a 3-day session, or tell me a little bit about that. So
boot camp in its current form, it is also, in the spirit of continuous improvement, definitely improved. What we start out with now, there's a little bit of homework required, some prep work. Obviously, your tenure as a champion, and were you good at getting the survey in? Did it feel honest? Did you attend check-ins? That sort of thing. Homework, a 3-day in-person session where there's team building activity, a lot of focus on your facilitation skill set, familiarity with our standard trade partner training. And then that is supplemented by virtual sessions if we need it, where we focus more on elective practices or follow-up. And then new in 2023 that we will likely continue is we actually asked all of the new coaches to, as a group project, develop guidelines for how to meet some of our most popular elective practices. And so they presented that kind of as their capstone project to the rest of the group. And they did a great job. We had a presentation on Gemba walks, on nothing hits the floor, and then just-in-time delivery. And I thought all 3 teams did great enough. I was like, well, how about we present to a larger audience? So they've been going through the exercise of presenting that to our coach community at hand, or during our coach calls. And so now we're exposing it to a broader audience. And there's, like I said, there's this continuing education element that's also bringing them in as subject matter experts.
So for the camp, is it just Flintco people, or is there, okay.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
just Flintco people, our new coaches, and then our coach instructors, whoever can participate, and they're always the star of the show. Everybody, less production support. We don't need you guys. We want to hear more from the people who are just like us.
Sure.
And then the mentor training. So we've completed 1 session of mentor training. It's actually going to end up as a 2-year program. First thought it would be a 1-year program. There's basically 2 training events. So, kind of what's the problems of the day that are facing us? Definitely more of a discussion focused. There's also like a a Gemba day where with our last group, our first group of mentors, also our last group of mentors, because we'll have mentor training coming up in 2024 again, sent everybody to our projects in Arkansas and had them go around, evaluate them, and kind of come to an alignment about what did you guys see. And we also had a feedback session with those project teams as well, like, hey, all these people came in from around the company, here's the questions that they have for y'all, here's what they took away, what you guys are doing, that's awesome. And then those mentors also are expected to do a capstone project. So this last group, they ended up standardizing our trade partner training. And that was at the direction of the steering committee, who said, hey, we need to pay more attention to trade partner training. We've been given this request from our senior leadership group. How are we going to go about doing that? And this mentor group decided to take that on, all like of their own volition. So that's what was pretty cool about everything they accomplished in 2023, was going through the action of, no, we want to take time out of our schedule, meet together as a group, standardize that, record a presentation around it, help everybody else become familiar with that. So I'm like, just seeing the success of that, I'm pretty excited for whatever our 2024 mentor group comes up with.
And so those folks have their hand in the air already to be the mentors in 2024?
For sure.
And they're selected?
Yep. And it's probably still like a little bit up in the air. There's a lot of them who like, they know that they're on the list. We'll be finalizing that list sometime later this year. And of course, knowing that there's compensation involved, like it doesn't hurt.
I heard you talk a little bit about retire with Flintco, and I know that's part of our 2027 goal. Like, how do you feel like the stipend helps that, or helps folks realize that, hey, this is actually can be a long-term commitment and will help you stay here till it's time to hang it up?
For me, like it's a pretty personal attachment. I think like our lean coaches, and mentors and champions, but like the lean coach group is the backbone of our lean program at Flintco. And I think what differentiates Flintco from other companies in the industry is the fact that we don't have a huge department full of people with lean in their title by design. We don't rely heavily on outside consultants to come in and help us. So if we're going to keep together our community of subject matter experts, we want them to stay at Flintco, because those skills are absolutely transferable to other folks. And, I also, I love seeing and I love hearing and onboarding new employees coming in saying, like, we sort of did lean at other companies, or I was frustrated by this because it wasn't company-wide adoption. Like, I'm cautiously curious about where you guys are going. So, if we can create this other data point that continues to say, lean practices are important to us. The fact that you know how to utilize the last planner system and you believe in its effectiveness is rewarded at Flintco. That's hard to find in our industry. And, for me, like putting myself in those shoes, putting myself back in 2009 when I started out, I'm going to be told to do this. Had I known, someday I'd be in a position where I could work for a company that was going to reward me for doing that versus like, I'm doing it because I believe in it, but it's really hard to get people on board. I would have stayed with that company. Like, I would want to retire with that company. And I think other people are going to feel the same way.
Yeah, I would think so too. It helps confirm your identity, right, within the company, right? When you form that identity, it helps you be able to feel like what you're doing on a daily basis is making an impact, right? And you start with the last planner. Like, I remember one of my first jobs where I was told I was going to be doing lean. It was right here around the 2018 time frame, where we come in and the coach comes in and they're like, hey, this is kind of how things are going to go, right? And I had some old school folks on my team, and they're kind of like, oh yeah, this is why, here comes the lean folks. The lean police is going to tell us what we have to do. And we sat down and our coach helped us facilitate our first phase plan. And had that not happened, I don't think it ever would have worked on our job. Right? Because somebody that comes in, that their sole goal is to help ask the questions that maybe you don't even want to ask to be able to get the schedule started. And you get conversations like, what do you mean we're going to start at the end? How do we start at the end and then work back to the beginning? And I remember walking out of that phase plan and the concrete superintendent stopped me.
Okay.
And he was like, "Hey, Dano, man, I really appreciate being invited today." And I was kind of like, "Man, you know, I know it's hard." And he was like, "I didn't realize all these other things had to happen." Right?
Yeah.
They were our formwork, trade partner, and they were coming and setting up the formwork, and they're wondering why it's a week and a half before we can pour concrete. And
Yeah.
he's like, "Well, I didn't realize you had all these embeds. I didn't realize you had all this, rebar or PT cable or sleeves or whatever it might be to get it done." And he said, I can have my guys hang around an extra day to help with the edge forms or help set embeds,
Yeah.
right? And maybe that'll help us turn the slabs a little bit quicker. And I was like, that light bulb in my head went off. It's like, aha, this works, right? If this guy got something out of it, wait till the next phase plan. And sure enough, the next one, the mason's in there, and he's going, "Well, I didn't realize all this had to happen.
Yeah.
I didn't realize all that had to happen." Well, now I know where I am on the schedule when I show up 3 or 4 days before to make sure my crews are going to be out there and need to be ready. I know what to look for to make sure that everything's going to be ready, and I don't even have to go to the superintendent,
Yeah.
right? I can look and know and
Yeah.
move on with it. So it's been a good journey for me too, I would say.
Yeah.
I feel like it's helped our projects and helped communication for sure.
Absolutely. Well, and it's fun to see, for me, like it is fun to hear the story you just shared. And like, honestly, that's what I love seeing whenever I go into a phase plan is that's how I have learned more about construction than I ever learned as a project manager, because all the different ways that we can build a job, like, is amazing to me, and all I have to do is go in and ask the question. I don't have to know everything there
No,
is to
you
know
don't.
about the job.
Nope.
And
Trust your
it's-
experts that are in the room, right?
Exactly, and let them be experts. Don't like, we'll facilitate the meeting. Like, you don't got to worry about anything but telling us how it can be done. So
Well, and that's the other thing. The longer you do it, the more you see that the benefit is the experts are the ones that are helping with the schedule, right? You can
Yeah.
rewind like 4,000 years ago, and you have Pharaoh that's standing there whipping everybody saying, "You got to have 17 blocks in today if we're going to get the pyramid built," right?
Yeah.
And the people that were doing it didn't have any say in it. They just had to do it.
Right.
Right. And now it's, hey, this is the time frame we have. Help me figure out how to do it, right? And everybody that's in this industry is a good problem solver, and they like
Yeah.
to put their brain to work and say, "Hey, I was on a job like this, and we did this or we did that," and all of a sudden, the ideas are flowing and the schedule works and everybody's bought in, and you walk out of there and it's a good feeling.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're going to make it, right? We can get this first milestone, get the job started on the right foot. So tell me, you're 7 years in, right? 7
Yeah.
years here at Flintco. I can't
Yeah.
believe it's been that long. It's hopefully it's many more years, right? And we can be in that retirement
Yes,
party
that's
together.
right. That's right.
What does Flintco and Lean look like in the next 4 or 5 years?
Ooh, that's an exciting question.
Yeah, it should be.
So I think we see Lean 2.0 hit that 100% mark, and I would have been real cautious about saying that. Just even a few years ago, they'd be like, "Well, can we get people bought in?" Or we're still, we're always working on buy-in and stuff. Like, to actually see that number is, and when I say 100%, I mean like genuine commitment to putting the practices in place, and daily huddles are a legit part of what we do every single day. Weekly work plans are just something you should expect on a Flintco job. I think it's awesome to be able to stand there and say, like, that's what we're going to do. And I know that it's going to be what's best for Flintco because we have the guidance of the Lean 2.0 steering committee leading the way. The other cool thing that makes me say that is we've just Flintco as a whole, as the next iteration of our Lean journey, have also kind of turned the focus inward with the development of our FX360 program, which is focused on operational excellence and improving our business practices. So we have Lean 2.0 that's outward facing, engages a lot of our trades, our clients, and then there's this more inward facing of how can we get better with our business processes and really make a transformation to, like, this is a great place to work. We want to retain people because we have reduced your frustrations. We're eliminating duplication of efforts. Like, that is everything that FX360 is focused on. And so for me, seeing the two programs merge when we recently completed our managing project schedules, developing that future state, which is currently in transformation now. So, like, we are we are doing something about what we think is the ideal future state at Flintco. And to sit in a room full of people who are really good at what they do, who make coming to work a lot of fun every single day, just because like they're super smart. And it was project directors, it was superintendents, PMs, and hearing them all say, well, everybody should be doing weekly work plans. Everybody should be, having phase plans. Everybody should be informing their look-ahead schedule out of that phase plan. Mm-hmm. Every project is going to have a lean coach. Every project is going to be a lean project. I was in there as co-facilitator trying my best to not influence the discussion. Y'all need to be making the decision. And hearing those folks say that, some of whom were pretty skeptical and definitely are still challenging, they mm-hmm. always are focused on what's best for the project and are we doing this for the sake of lean or are we doing this for the sake of the project? But hearing them say, these are what's best for Flintco, this is what we should be doing, that was a huge win. And so it was nice to see the two programs come together, and I started, seeing more of that roll out over the next 4 or 5 years. Seeing people more excited about working at Flintco, wanting to stay here. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm most excited about, and that's where I think we're headed.
Sounds like a great place to be, right?
I think so.
Great place to work.
I think so.
So when you think about the 4 or 5 key principles that we focus on and the +1, you foresee that kind of staying the same, or are we still going to stay around those 5? And
so I think so for now. We mm-hmm. certainly, as a steering committee, they revisited it last year, revisited it this year. It feels like, last planner system is the keystone practice mm-hmm. of Lean 2.0.
Gotta be.
Of your 5 standard practices, that's the one. Mm-hmm. But it's a lot easier to support last planner system when you have in-house training. We're telling our trade partners, here's what we expect from you, here's what you should expect from us. When we're making sure our folks are capable of facilitating those meetings, when we have a lean coach in place on every project. So, okay, we've got last planner system, in-house training, in-house facilitation and coaching. Well, I got my 3 of 5. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, I'm going to use co-location. Our teams need to be as collaborative as possible. Mm-hmm. They need to be focused Absolutely. On, a meeting space that is effective. So now I'm at 4. Well, and the last one is conditions of satisfaction. Well, why would we not align around project success and what are those goals and measure how we're meeting them? That's preposterous to not do that. So, yeah, I think the 5 still makes sense.
So
for us.
What's the biggest offender? What's the biggest one that's left out of that 5? When you say that we're at 60-something%, and that's because maybe they're doing 3 of them or mm-hmm. 4 of them, they don't have all 5, or the elective picked. What's the most common one you're seeing left out?
The elective. It's an elective for a reason, so that's probably number 1. If you of the 5 standard practices. On our smaller projects, I would say co-location is a bigger challenge for mm-hmm. them, just because
some jobs can't afford or don't afford it.
Yeah,
right?
can't afford it. You got folks who, especially on our remote jobs, they're just not out there. Yeah. So are there ways to work around that? Sure, but meeting the standards of that's tough for them. I think we have made a lot of strides on the trade partner training with mm-hmm. the standard message, so it's a lot easier for folks to be able to deliver that. So I'm seeing some growth there. Conditions of satisfaction is making them measurable. That's probably our biggest area of improvement right now, that and making sure we're tracking PPC with the last planner system all the way through the life of the job, especially at the end. Everybody at the end of the job, hair's on fire. Guess what? Starts dropping off.
That falls off the list,
That's
right?
That's
88% of them were turned in on this job.
Yeah. But the cool thing is, with use of a digital last planner system tool, to document items, touch plan or similar programs, we've seen a lot of improvement in that because it's easier. It's not Excel anymore. I'm not having to manually calculate stuff. So we're seeing a lot of improvement there as well.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest compliments I've received from my superintendent about utilizing touch plan.
Nice.
He's like, oh man, let me tell you about % plan complete. You just click the little button and here it comes.
Yeah.
And it's easy to generate and it's easy. It's just right there and it's done. Mm-hmm. And I think we're running 80% is what we had last go round.
Respect.
So it's one of those things where when you can do it and you can see the fruits of your labor and not have to spend 3 hours on the Excel sheet and the calculation, it makes it a lot easier to track.
For sure.
You know, one thing about the conditions of satisfaction, I would imagine that a lot of people go into the job and they say, oh, well, we know what the owner wants, right? We know what they want. We'll just deliver the job. It's no big deal. But I think having that conversation, or even if it's conditions of satisfaction with your trade partners as well, it's kind of like, yeah, we know they want to be profitable, they want to be safe, but I had a meeting just this past week that was an alignment meeting with us and one of our trade partners that they initiated.
Nice.
And we talked about the same thing, what was conditions of satisfaction. And we were pretty close on alignment, but it's still good to say those words and speak them into existence so that you know and the people in the room know exactly what it's going to be. And definitely when you spend that time with an owner to say, hey, look, this job is important enough to me that I'm going to spend time with you and you tell me what is going to make this job a success for you. I always have owners go, wow, let me think about that. You know, like, well, we want to finish on time. We want this and we want that. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're going to be on a team together to accomplish that. And you post it there in the conference room, and it's great to be able to reference it and say, hey, remember when we talked about this? Let's figure out the problem and let's move on, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. So this has been a great conversation. It's been super enlightening. I'm super excited for you and just your passion for this as we continue to grow. And I'm excited that Flintco's all in and helping us grow in that, and that we continue to participate, and there's people that are continue to be interested. But like, for the folks that are listening today, what's like the one thing that you want them to take away from this conversation?
All the things. Now, the one thing.
You got to listen to it 7 times, and then you can.
That's right. And then you can really know. No, the one thing, if you didn't hear anything else out of this conversation, is, if you have seen the benefit of lean practices. If you're in, and I'm talking specifically to folks in the construction industry, if you have seen the benefit of it, but maybe you don't feel supported at your company, or you want to do something different, or maybe you are supported, but like you're interested in a company where like we see it company wide, consider Flintco. If you're a Flintco employee, I hope you're excited about where we're going with the lean journey. If you are interested in being a lean coach or a lean mentor, know that those efforts are rewarded, appreciated. They are key to sustaining this program. You are a valued member of this community, and like, we want you here, and we want you to stay here, and keep that expertise where it can grow and develop and create more opportunities for you at the company, and ensure that you retire at Flintco, because you're a person I want to work with. That's what I want you to take away.
Absolutely. I would say the same thing, that if you hear this and you're interested in lean and you work for us already, get your hand in the air, right? There's a need for it. If the goal is 100%, all of our jobs are going to do it, and it's going to take us all. So
that's right.
Melanie, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on today. It's good to see you as always. And thanks for being here, and thanks for joining us today on Flintco Talks.
Thanks for having me, Dana.
You bet.
It's been such a long